Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt completely, totally overwhelmed by the everyday grind of raising a human being, you are in exactly the right place. We all know that feeling, right? The sleepless nights, the constant second-guessing, the sheer exhaustion of trying to mold a tiny, chaotic person into a functional adult. It kind of feels like we're just trying to survive until bedtime most days. But today, we're unpacking a concept from our source material that might fundamentally shift how you view your role in the next generation's life. We are diving deep into the architecture of resourceful parenting. It's really about pulling ourselves out of that survival mode and understanding the profound, deeply impactful difference between simply having a child and purposefully, intentionally raising one.
Okay, let's dive right into this by challenging a basic assumption that honestly we rarely stop to think about. Is parenting the exact same thing as giving birth? Culturally, we tend to lump these two things together, don't we? You have a kid, you're a parent. Boom, done. But in our source material today, the author draws a very sharp, deliberate line in the sand between these two concepts. The goal here is to completely reframe our entire approach to raising children, moving us away from a passive existence and pushing us toward active construction.
Moving on to Section 1. The true meaning of parenting.
So as you can see, giving birth is merely a biological event. It's a specific moment in time, a physiological milestone. Parenting, however, is a conscious, ongoing, and literally relentless effort. It is an active state of being, not just a biological consequence. Just think about the difference in your daily life. Biology is what brings a child into your home, but intention is what you do when that child is throwing a massive, ear-piercing tantrum in aisle 4 of the grocery store because you won't buy them sugary cereal, right? We've all been there. Biology might tell you to just yell, or maybe hand them a smartphone to immediately shut down the noise and stop the embarrassing stares. But intentional parenting? Wow, that's taking a deep breath, crouching down to their level, and using that highly stressful moment to teach emotional regulation, even when it is the absolutely hardest possible thing to do in that exact second. It requires constant, daily, exhausting input and strategy.
And the text we're analyzing explicitly states that parenting may be the most difficult thing parents do if chosen with a purpose. That word right there, purpose, is the absolute anchor of this entire philosophy. True parenting isn't just the default setting that happily runs in the background of your life while you focus on other things. When you attach a specific overarching purpose to how you guide a human being, the difficulty naturally skyrockets. Why? Well, because you can no longer take the easy way out. You can't just rely on endless screen time to keep them quiet, and you can't just give in to every demand to avoid friction. You have to take the harder, more developmental path every single day. Actually, scratch that. It's more like an obstacle course. But while the difficulty goes through the roof, so does the ultimate impact you have on who they become.
This brings us to Section 2, the Thatcher parenting paradox.
Now think about this for a second. Let's say you won the lottery tomorrow. If you could give a child the ultimate advantage in life, what exactly would you provide for them? Unlimited funds? A massive trust fund? The very best private tutors money can buy? A perfectly paved road completely free of any obstacles, failures, or rejections? I mean, it's basic human nature to want to remove friction for the people we love. We want to be snowplows, right? Clearing the path so they never have to stumble or feel the sting of hardship. But our source material takes a surprisingly different angle on what actually constitutes a true lifelong advantage. The text highlights a very specific quote from Margaret Thatcher. It says, "The best thing that could happen to a kid is to be born to a set of good parents with no money." Now, I want to be clear. Our source material utilizes this quote completely neutrally to highlight a fascinating developmental paradox. This isn't about politics at all. This is purely about human psychology. It suggests that a lack of financial padding, when paired with strong, purposeful parenting, can actually be a supreme advantage. Why? Because it forces adaptation. Consider a child who wants a new bicycle. If the parents have endless money, they just buy the shiny new bike. Boom, desire fulfilled, zero effort required. But what if the parents don't have the money? That child might be given a hand-me-down with a broken chain. They have to figure out how to fix it. They have to ask neighbors for tools. They might even have to mow lawns to buy a new tire. The struggle builds the muscle. A lack of resources forces problem-solving and a grounded sense of reality that unlimited wealth might inadvertently completely bypass.
Let's jump into Section 3, resources versus resourcefulness.
So this brings us to what is arguably the most critical pivot of this whole explainer. The source text explicitly warns against raising kids who are conditioned to simply ask for external resources to achieve their goals. Because when a child's focus is purely on acquiring things from the outside, asking for money, asking for help, relying on your connections to get an internship, they become incredibly dependent. They learn that the solution to their problems always lies outside of themselves. And the danger here is profound. Because what happens when they turn 22, move out, and that external bank of resources suddenly dries up? They hit the real world, face a difficult boss or a strict landlord, and they just completely crumble. Instead, the text argues we must actively empower them to be inherently resourceful. We have to shift from relying on the external world to fortifying their internal mind.
True resourcefulness really boils down to a very simple yet profound idea: doing your best with what you have and where you are. It sounds basic, I know, but it is an absolute superpower of a life skill. It means equipping a child to maximize their current situation and materials, whatever those may happen to be. It's teaching them to see possibilities instead of dead ends. Imagine a kid who wants a grand toy castle. A resource-dependent kid just complains until you buy the $100 plastic set. But a resourceful kid, they look at the empty Amazon boxes in the garage, grab some markers and packing tape, and spend 3 hours architecting their own fortress. That mindset, leveraging the immediate environment for success, is what we are really trying to build here.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, the continuous improvement path.
The text outlines 3 distinct pillars for a child's mindset, and the magic is really in how they casually link together. First, as we just discussed, teaching them to do their best with what they have right now. When a child learns to do this, when they build that cardboard castle or fix that broken bike chain, something incredible happens. It naturally leads to the second pillar. They become genuinely proud of who they are. They develop a deep-seated gratitude and an internal self-respect that isn't tied to expensive sneakers or the latest gadgets. Their pride comes directly from their own capability. And finally, that internal pride fuels the third pillar, a desire to stay on the path of continuous improvement. Because they aren't just sitting around waiting for the world to hand them things, they develop a relentless, lifelong drive to improve their own skills. This trifecta, resourcefulness, internal pride, and continuous improvement, is the ultimate blueprint for raising resilient adults. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a real challenge, something to reflect on regarding your own daily approach. The next time your child faces a hurdle, whether it's a difficult homework assignment, a conflict with a friend, or a broken toy, what are you going to do? Will you just hand them the resources to instantly fix it? Or will you take a deep breath, step back, and do the hard, purposeful work of teaching them resourcefulness? How you choose to answer that question day in and day out might just dictate the entire trajectory of their lives. So what kind of architect are you going to be?